All right. Eddie Hearn trying to play boss, trying to play big boss with the WBC and Dazn talking heads. Real salty that their boy AJ fell on their face. That's on his face. That's what we're going to talk about in this video. All right, subscribers, welcome back to the channel. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share the video. Definitely check out our live streams that we do every morning, Monday through Friday, and OG Boxing Talk on Sunday. And last but not least, check out the Patreon. We just put up a new video on introduction to contracts, non-boxing topic, but it's introduction to contracts where we cover what a contract is, how it works, right? All those type of issues for people in the Patreon that have been asking me about those type of issues. So check it out there. It's for informational. It's for information only, no legal advice, but I think that you'll enjoy it. I think you'll get something out of it. Now, speaking of which, Eddie Hearn obviously does not read the WBC rule book. Okay? It's in the rules, Eddie. It's in the rules. The head of the WBC, the president of the WBC, Mauricio Suleiman, can do whatever he wants as long as he believes and the fellow commissioners believe it's in the best interest of boxing. It is a big old get out of jail free card flat in the front of the rules of the WBC. I think it's the entitled interpretation of the rules. But let's tell you what he said first. Eddie Hearn, before I get into that explanation, and then I'm going to talk about this guy Chris Mannix from Dazn, who has got to be one of the bigger AJ protectors. He's obviously the second mouthpiece of Dazn. We're going to talk about some things that he said about Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz on his Twitter. Man, the dude is, he's an excellent writer. I don't know about a thinker, but he knows how to write well. Now, first things first. Eddie Hearn says that he is going to sue the WBC, threatens to sue the WBC, if the WBC allows Deontay Wilder to rematch with Tyson Fury. Because the fight with Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas is supposed to be the next mandatory for Deontay Wilder. Okay, let's ignore the fact that so far I have not heard the WBC say that the Oscar Rivas fight with Dillian Whyte is supposed to be for a mandatory. I know that they said something about the Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte being for a mandatory shot at Deontay Wilder, but I've not heard that they're going to actually move that over to the fight with Oscar Rivas. But let's just assume, for the sake of assuming that, which is never safe, that Eddie Hearn is not misleading you. But let's just assume that it is the mandatory position. I have not heard that, but hey, man, it might be somewhere where I haven't heard it. Deontay Wilder just fought his mandatory in Dominic, Brazil last month. Just fought him. And according to the WBC rules, Deontay Wilder only has to fight one mandatory in a calendar year. Oh, excuse me, not in a calendar year, for 12 months. Now, we could see whether it would be a calendar year, which means he fought one in 2019, so he doesn't have to fight one until 2020, or it could be 12 months from the time he fought his mandatory last, which would make that 12 months. So it's between 12 and 18 months, according to the WBC rules, before Deontay Wilder would have to fight a mandatory. But even then, there's no guarantee that he would have to fight Dillian Whyte, because Dillian Whyte has not beaten Oscar Rivas yet. So what are you blustering about, Eddie? Once, as you know, Eddie, and as we all saw, the best laid plans of men go awry. Just like it went awry for Anthony Joshua when he got knocked out by Fluffy just the Saturday before last. Anyway, there's no guarantee that Deontay Wilder would have to fight a mandatory for another 12 months. So one, I don't even know of Dillian Whyte being the mandatory yet. Two, I don't even know, I don't know that Dillian Whyte is actually fighting for a mandatory position, number one. Number two, he's not won it all. He's not won the fight because the fight hasn't happened already. So what are you talking about? And number three, even if he does become the mandatory, Deontay Wilder has at least 12 months and between 12 and 18 months to fight the mandatory regardless. And that is only if the WBC says that they believe that a fight with Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder or whoever that mandatory is in the best interest of boxing. Because again, I think it's the interpretation of their rules. They specifically talk about that the commissioner has the right to interpret all those rules in a manner that he believes is in the best interest of boxing. So if Deontay Wilder wanted to fight Andy Ruiz for a unification fight after he fights Luis Ortiz, Mauricio Sulaiman might say that's in the best interest of boxing. And if that's in the best interest of boxing, then hey, you gotta wait. But what you gonna go to court for, Eddie? You're gonna go to court and you know what they're gonna point at you? They're gonna point right to you. Interpretation of the rules. It's right there in the rule book. They told you what their rule is. If they believe that it's in the best interest of boxing, then it's in the best interest of boxing. That's how Alexander Povetkin got out of paying that money that's how Alexander Povetkin got out of paying that money to Deontay Wilder. When Deontay Wilder and Lou DiBella took those guys to court over that money, and because Alexander Povetkin had popped dirty, the court pointed to the fact that in the rules of the WBC, there was a word that said may. That the WBC commissioner may do thus and such. May determine that one of those performance-enhancing drugs violated their policy. It didn't say will or shall, it said may. So that little word may, the difference between may and shall is huge. It's huge. So you can bluster about suing somebody, more than likely all you're gonna do is waste your money. Because clearly, and then they'll say, on top of that, we gave Dillian Whyte several chances to fight to become the mandatory position, and he turned us down. He turned us down for a fight that we ordered for him and Luis Ortiz. He turned it down. So, hey, we've shown best efforts to get this guy highly ranked and to get him his shot, but he's not been cooperative at times. So not only is it in the best interest of boxing for us to allow this fight for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder to go on, because we had also ordered that fight to happen in the past. See, Eddie and Eddie fans, there's all kind of arguments that can be made that would prevent this nonsense that Eddie Hearn's trying to do. But what Eddie Hearn is really just trying to do is trying to create public pressure on people to try to demand the fight between Dillian Whyte and Deontay Wilder, and hope that eventually that through his threats and his taunts that the WBC will back down and make the fight if there's enough fans that are demanding the fight. That's what Eddie's trying to do. That's why Eddie Hearn didn't say that in a room to Mauricio Sulaiman. That's why he said it in the press, so that we could be talking about it as boxing fans about this whole Dillian Whyte fighting Deontay Wilder, because Anthony Joshua got knocked down 4 times, put out of the equation, and Eddie Hearn has been wanting this fight for a while. So, yap with all that suing, Eddie. That's how I see it anyway. Now on to the other subject, which I find very, very funny. The Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz rematch that Eddie Hearn is going around saying he's negotiating with 4 different venues in the UK. You got this guy, Chris Mannix, just tweeted out today that AJ is in total control of this negotiation because of what Andy Ruiz had agreed to in the rematch clause. First of all, there's no such thing as total control. But let's just say this. Let's just imagine that Andy Ruiz is just really feels that he was taken advantage of in that negotiation. That he had no choice, and that he had no choice but to accept that agreement, to accept that term, but he doesn't want to go along with it. If he goes to the UK, he wants his $50 million. Or but he more than likely settle for 20, right? Whatever the case is. What is it that Anthony Joshua is going to do if Andy Ruiz tells him, no, I'm not going to fight you? What's he going to do? What's his recourse? He's a paper champion if he gets the belt and Andy Ruiz knocks him out. Andy Ruiz knocked him out. He's already out there looking bad in the streets. I like that saying, looking bad in the streets. He's already out there looking bad in the streets because he got knocked out. And now he got clowns like Chris Mannix and Eddie Hearn running around trying to debate contract details about in a way to get every advantage for Anthony Joshua. Why don't you just run it back, Anthony? See, Anthony said, according to Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua said what most people are gonna think. Hey man, you lost, man up, go back to New York, go to this dude's backyard and fight him. If you try to get him stripped because he won't go over to the UK and give you every foreseeable advantage in the world, then dude, you're not only looking like you got whooped and a fraud, now you look like a fraud and a punk. Because you won't go over to this, you won't acquiesce and go fight this dude in his neighborhood. Okay, so the perception, what's the word? The optics are bad for Anthony Joshua. So number one, Anthony Joshua, if they insist on having that fight in the United States, or they're gonna do a Seam Rahman and take that, not a Seam Rahman, do a Riddick Bowe, sit up there and say, look, man, these guys are trying to take advantage of me. If he was a real man, he would fight me in New York. If he's a real man, he'd be fighting me in New York or in LA. Here, take this belt, dump it in, and I'm going after Deontay Wilder. What's AJ gonna do? AJ gonna let those belts go into the garbage can? Hey, if Andy Ruiz is serious about walking off, I bet he won't. I bet he'll go fight in New York. Because that means Dazn loses. And that's who Chris Mannix is arguing for, by the way. When he says Anthony Joshua has total control, he doesn't mean Anthony Joshua. He means Dazn has total control. This is a guy that is a mouthpiece for Dazn. He is a correspondent for Dazn. He's the same guy that said so hypocritically that if Deontay Wilder, he was so disappointed because of Deontay Wilder's refusal to allow Dazn to bid on his next fight. But yet, he's supporting Anthony Joshua refusing to allow Andy Ruiz to negotiate the location of his fight and the network of his fight. So, as long as it is Dazn that's getting the preferential treatment, Chris Mannix is okay with it. But if it's Showtime that gets preferential treatment from a fighter, then he's absolutely so incredibly disappointed. You're a hypocrite, Chris. You're a hypocrite. Okay? If Deontay Wilder should have given Dazn an opportunity to bid on his next fight with Luis Ortiz, then Dazn should be giving Showtime and Fox an opportunity to bid on the next fight between Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, Chris. But anyway, that's not what they're on. They're on let's take over the United States boxing with Dazn. But he's a paid mouthpiece. That's what you expect. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, hit the bell icon, hit share, all that good stuff. But please, if you are a consistent subscriber to the channel and you'd like to understand some of the issues that we talked about a little bit more in depth, subscribe to the Patreon. We're gonna definitely have we definitely already got a really good introduction lesson to some of the topics that I talked about here as far as understanding contracts, understanding agreements and I think that you'll really be, it's like I said, it's something that will give you basic information to understand what you're doing. So I appreciate you very much. Peace.